Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Tweedy back again with another Mortal Kombat 1 news video. So we actually have a new Ed Boon interview that took place at the Summer Game Fest when people were getting games in, stuff like that. And yeah, we're going to check it out. We're going to see if is going to give us any new information. Looks like the interview was from Jeff. Oh, I hope I don't say this super wrong. Gersman? Jeff Gersman? Probably said that really wrong. But anyways, appreciate him getting the interview. Let's check it out.
Here at the Summer Game Fest with Ed Boon of the Grid fame. That's,
Pinball fame.
Pinball Zone.
Yeah, pinball programmer, please.
Pinball Zone Edward J. Boon is here.
That's right.
How are things? You're out here with a new game, finally.
Yeah, it's Mortal Kombat 1. I think it's the longest span from any game that we've made until the next one, basically. It's like kind of 4 years from when MK11 came out.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, like Aftermath and Ultimate and stuff like that, but we had started on this game, during all that stuff.
What was it that made? Because normally, like, you would have kind of established this cadence with like the Injustice games, where you were kind of swapping back and forth between them. So I think a lot of people were expecting Injustice 3 here.
Yeah. But
But did you just roll right into the Aftermath? Feel so good story wise? You're like, no, we got to get back at it, or like, how did it happen?
A number of things had happened since that. We switched to a newer Unreal, and that was a big heavy lift.
Right.
We knew there was something that we eventually had to do, and that it would make the next game take longer, and then it would also, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were really kind of.
Yeah, so that's what we were kind of suspecting all along. The Unreal Engine is what was making a new engine was making them take so long. Because if you go back and look at what engine was used on each game, MK11 used Unreal 3, and Unreal 3 by 2019 was pretty outdated. Like, Unreal 3 has been used for NRS games and other games since MK vs. DC. You know what I mean? Since before it was even NRS. So it makes sense that this would finally be the time, especially with PS5 coming in, like them still being on Unreal 3. Like, yeah, they had to change, and also, the pandemic and all that stuff.
Finding our footing in terms of like how are we gonna be doing this, and so, but we made the decision to go to the new Unreal before COVID had hit, and so we kind of committed to that direction.
Right.
And the thought was if we did an Injustice game, and we knew we were going to take longer, it'll be like 7 years between MK games.
Right.
And we can't have any of that.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, let's do another Mortal Kombat game.
Hold on. He said, if we do an Injustice game, it's going to be 7 years between MK games. So what I take from that is, what's 7 years from 2019? What's 7 years from 2019? 2026? So should we expect Injustice 3 by then? 2026? Dang, I'm gonna be 30, y'all. I'm gonna be 30 years old, ready to mop it up again with Starfire.
And it was also something that we wanted to, if we're gonna showcase a new graphics engine and new, gameplay stuff like that, let's do it on a Mortal Kombat game, and then the plan would be to go back to Injustice and stuff like that.
Cool. So. Yeah, I think that was like, and just the time.
Wait, hold on. What did you say right there?
Makes total sense when you
Can
think
you go
about
back?
UV5.
Can you go back, sir?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the plan would be to go back to Injustice and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I think
He
that
kind of mumbled there. What did he say? He kind of like said it under his breath.
To go back to Injustice and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I think that
I
was...
can't tell what he says there. He says, go back to Injustice, and then he says like 4 words after that, but he like says it under his breath, and like the people in the background are so loud. Like, what did he say there?
And then the plan would be to go back to Injustice and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I think that was like, and just the time between it makes total sense when you think about UV5 and all the, because I remember.
So it is Unreal 5.
Even Epic was saying it's crazy what NetherRealm is doing with Unreal Engine 4. Like, they made it run at 60 frames per second. How did they even do that? We don't even know. Like, was it as difficult this time around to kind of apply your like the team's magic
It
to
was
UE5?
it was a heavy
Yeah.
lift, and not in any way like a negative towards Unreal or anything like
Yeah.
that, but it was a completely different development environment, a completely different philosophy. We were kind of we weren't using their latest tools, and so we had this new suite of tools that hyper powerful, but we had to wire it into
Like all
our
your
kind of
specific
fighting game
things that
engine.
you've come up with over
Exactly,
the years.
exactly,
Right?
and our scripting system and all everything that we're used to iterating on really fast. And like I said, it was a heavy lift. It was inevitable. It was something that we knew we had to do. It was like, what's the timing of it? And like I said, when we made that call, then COVID hit,
Right.
And then all of a sudden, okay, everybody's working from home and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it was a challenging thing, but we feel like we're kind of over that hump and we're iterating again fast.
It seems nice. I mean, a lot of fighting games get announced and have plenty of time for their entire roster to leak, and I think these last couple. That you've
To leak.
you've wired
Not to be announced.
No,
To leak.
you've wired things up now that you basically have like 4 months of like interviews and stuff to do, and then the game's just out. That must be like nice to not have to keep going. I mean, COVID obviously impacted it too, but to not have to go to a billion different shows and have builds for events and all that stuff along the way too.
It's a different thing, and what actually, because I've been asked it a few times. We did something somewhat similar to that with MK11. MK11 came out at the Game Awards, which was December, right?
Yeah.
And then the game came out in like May. So it was
I
5
remember that
months
seeming
later.
weird because it was like you were off your like every other April thing.
Exactly,
You were on
yeah.
like forever before that.
Yeah, so we've done something similar to like that, but I think this is even more condensed.
Yeah.
And we have new game modes we haven't talked about. A slew of new characters are just waiting to be leaked, and we're having a lot of.
Feel free to leak them.
Leak them to you.
Tara, what are we talking here?
Oh, it's. People are going to be surprised with how deep we're going into the kind of like the last, games, and I think our count is almost 100 in terms of every character we've ever. But that includes, mocap, meat,
the important ones,
the important ones,
Striker,
exactly. But we are getting with obscure, especially with the cameo characters. Those are going to be really.
Yeah, so I mean that just further confirms that Kai and Jarek are probably going to be cameos. He's talking about obscure characters, especially cameos. So yeah, it's looking like that's real. It's looking like it's going to be characters like Kai and Jarek are going to be in.
Yeah, that seems like a real opportunity to get weird
Have fun.
and just have like every single character that's ever been in there at some point.
They're part of
Which is why like people should not, man, like people are taking the cameo thing as such a negative as far as roster. We're getting the base roster size of MK11. Like I don't know if people realize that. We're getting 24 characters. I think MK11 was maybe 26. So 2 less, but I'm not counting cameos. I'm talking that's the base roster. Main roster, you could use their full moveset. The cameos, 16 extra. So we're getting, how many characters is that? My math is not great. 40, right? We're getting 40 characters at release in total. 24 use their whole moveset. 16 is cameos. So people are taking it as a negative. They're like, oh, so many characters are going to be limited to cameo. But I mean, if it was just 24 to 26 base roster like usual, those characters wouldn't be in the game at all. They wouldn't be in the game at all. But because of cameo, they get in. You know what I mean? So people are looking at it as a negative. But I feel like it's objectively like a positive because it's not like we're getting less characters because of the cameos. You could argue we're getting like 2 less, like 24 instead of like 26 or 25. So we're getting maybe like 1 or 2 less. But we're getting a lot more characters like fit in because of the cameo system. And I feel like people are not considering that. They're just looking at the cameo thing as like a negative, Not everyone, but some people are.
I'm actually really happy with how it's turning out and with using them in combos and all that stuff. But there is an entertainment novelty variable of, you're going to see, it's Striker, and
exactly,
you're going to see these characters, and it gets way deeper.
Like even as a Striker fan, I can admit that Striker doesn't need to be a playable character.
Not in this game.
Yeah, not in this game. Yeah. But throw him in there, a little nod. Why not?
Well, and the story kind of dictates who can be.
Exactly, like Striker or someone like Kai, Striker, Jarek, they were never going to make main roster in 2023. You know what I mean? Now, you could argue like Sonya, Jax, Kano. They are normally fully playable, but they're cameos. But maybe if there wasn't a cameo system, maybe this would be the game where those characters sat out, you know? But because of cameo, they're still in. So people need to just start looking at it as from like a glass half full perspective, not a glass half empty type of deal.
A main character, right? Like, you know, we have like the Cassie Cages and the Jackies and all the kind of like the combat kids, right?
Yeah.
They're not born yet, right?
Yeah.
So we're you know, some of these we can use kind of like as cameos. We don't feel like are in the story part.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more of the novelty.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Okay. That was actually my question. Is like, is there like a
So the cameos aren't in the story, really? Or he's using like the cameos as kind of like a okay.
lore reason for like?
So the cameos aren't necessarily in the story, but they might. Some of them might be. I don't know.
Some because everyone's doing metaverse.
I don't know to
stuff,
take
right?
that.
Where it's like we bring it all together. So, yeah, that's pretty fun, and it lets you set up finishing moves, all these classics. Like I never thought I would see in a polygonal game giant jacks ever.
That's
again.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it was just this thing of just like it just doesn't seem like. You know, it fits with either the tone of, you know, something about it. It was just, that seemed like the one that would like never come back, and to literally see it in, you know, and I have.
My head goes back to like putting it in, like starting to grow in the 3D game, and then moving the camera because we can't.
Exactly.
And your imagination takes over.
Now you just have to make sure he doesn't clip through the ceiling.
Exactly.
You know,
He actually fit in the space.
Right.
But yeah, those are. And there's a bunch of those things, like, you know, you're going to see some really obscure ones, and you know, doing the whole, you know, the super moves involving two characters and stuff like that. That took a while to make fleshed out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We had team fatalities going for a while, but they started being a little bit too. Like kind of cookie cutter, like the Armageddon ones, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're not.
I was gonna say because you get to a point where it's like, okay, this person can do a fatality, but has to leave the character intact enough for someone else to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're just like, okay, let's have them fun, and then let's just give each cameo, you know, their own fatality and stuff like that. So it's just a bunch more fatalities.
So originally it was team fatalities, but they didn't like that, so they made it just like either you do yours or your cameo does theirs. Okay. I feel like I don't know. I would have liked to seen some of those team fatalities that didn't make it. You know, maybe they'll release some or something.
But you know the
or maybe they'll be in the files,
the throws, the breakers,
and like PC guys will show
a
them.
number of the things that just have the cameos in there.
So the story mode, I guess one of my big questions coming in was like the timeline, or like what time, because I think of Mortal Kombat as being like a relatively contemporary, like Mortal Kombat 3 you have subways and stuff like that, city streets and modern stuff. So like seeing Johnny Cage's mansion, or like I guess the question that left me with this is like, well, is Johnny Cage gonna be like a ancient some kind of, because he's going to take place at the beginning of time, and is it retelling the first Mortal Kombat tournament? So is this something that like jumps around in time, or is it set at a?
It's set in a pretty contemporary thing, but you know, and I've actually even thought back at times of like Liu Kang and Kung Lao, you know, Shaolin monks and stuff like that. Where does that fit? Is the Sears Tower in that same universe? Is the Brooklyn Bridge? All of these things. It's a little bit kind of fuzzy to me, but the idea is that it there is Johnny Cage. There's movies. There's
movies exist.
you can have a
cell phone.
But then in another part of the world, or in another realm, you know, the realm plays a big part of it too. Of like, you know, you can get back into the more ancient, you know, old kind of feeling there. But the realm stuff allows us to do that kind of stuff, and you know, like Outworld in this universe isn't the dingy dark thing. It's actually like pretty, you know, it's pretty and stuff like that. And so we bend things and stuff like that. Just it's like the familiar but different.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that seems like it would be a lot of fun to be able to sit back and revisit these characters and go like, okay, Scorpion and Sub-Zero should be brothers now instead of mortal enemies.
Yeah,
and
it's a bunch of like little origins, like you see, like, oh, this is in this universe. This is how Kung Lao came up with this hat. This is how, you know, Katana and Melina, you know, they have a different relationship. It's not as like adversarial. Same as Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And so we have reintroducing moments in their story of like, you know, oh, this yellow ninja guy. You know, we're like, I know he is,
Yeah.
but he's a different. It's a different origin thing, and I do feel there's a really cool novelty in the story of seeing a character introduced that you've known for 30 years, but now he's in this situation and this is his new origin.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the Liu Kang timeline thing, they're doing that and so that they can do anything they want without it being weird, because like they changed Sindel up a little bit with 11 or a lot of it, and people were mad. They were like, "Oh, retcon Sindel." They made her. I hate what they did with Sindel's like backstory, how they changed it. But with this Liu Kang timeline, they can change anything they want, and it's not a retcon because the old timeline still exists. The old timeline still happened. This is a new timeline, you know what I mean, shaped by Liu. So they could basically do whatever they want without it being like a retcon. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that seems like that would be a lot of fun to do. Was that something when like the ending of Aftermath was coming together? Was that a thing where you're like, okay, well, next we get to actually really blank slate this thing? And
Yes, not in like we hadn't fleshed out everything, like that, but we did feel like, okay, it's time to.
it's a trilogy of games. It's time
Yeah,
to kind of
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's been kind of the thing. I think
It has.
you and I have talked about it before.
Yeah,
Like, it's like you get 3 or 4 games in, and then you're like, okay, dramatic change to
Exactly.
gameplay and story and setting and everything.
That's
so it kind of
exactly
felt
it.
like it was.
Yeah, and we took it so far that it was like, okay, let's call it Mortal Kombat 1. In fact, the title kind of says it. Mortal Kombat 1, you think, okay, the first. Oh, okay, we're
I think that was something, even the little clock teaser.
I'm not gonna lie, 9X and 11 don't really feel like a trilogy to me. Like they feel like their own games, like isolated. Like the stories, like 9 is like the tournament, Shao Kahn, Liu and Raiden clash at the end, stuff like that. And then X is like very centered around the journey of like the combat kids and like, Kotal Khan's like Empire or whatever, and Devora coming up, and Shinnok and Quan Chi and Scorpion. And then 11 is all about like Kronika just popping out of nowhere. Like there's a statue in the back on MKX and Jinsei Chamber that kind of looks like Kronika, but that's the only. Besides that, she just popped out of nowhere, and then like the story like goes off from there. So like it doesn't feel like a trilogy to me. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of storylines in 9X and 11 that are exclusive to those games. You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel like a trilogy to me, to be honest. Even though I guess it technically is.
I spent enough time playing Aftermath that I saw it and went like, okay, of course, yeah,
Exactly.
naturally.
Yeah.
It's been interesting on kind of the fighting game scene lately. Obviously, Street Fighter just came out. And
Oh my God, yeah.
And Tekken's around the corner. It's just been awesome to see these games just coming out and doing so well. Like Street Fighter, I think in particular, does a really good job of kind of appealing to beginners in a way that I felt up until that point, your story mode was one of the best things for people that are not going to be like online competitive players or anything like that. But is that something you think about? Like, it's like seeing a focus on air combat and air combos and stuff. It's like, okay, you're gonna have to really time that and get really good to do that. Do you ever think about like, okay, what are other things we can do to kind of widen this out even further to get new players into the fold?
Yeah, we have, obviously we're going to have like a training mode, and there's going to be a kind of a tutorial element in the story in terms of introducing you to the concept of the cameos and all that. But that's absolutely on our minds, and I think, like the Street Fighter's modern controls are kind of like saying, hey, let's have more people be able to throw fireballs. So you don't have to, go down towards and whatever. Some people just can't do that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And and I think it's a good thing. I think it'll just bring more people into kind of, these fighting game things are cool, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm welcome.
Yeah, and that was always the difference. I remember back in the day, it was like, well, I can't do a dragon punch, but I can do every single move in Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah, anybody can go towards
Yeah,
that.
anybody can tap
do
back
that.
twice,
Yeah,
and I can do
and-
this, so it's just like out of the gate, it always felt like it's like a slightly more accessible game, I guess. in a weird way.
And that was definitely a conscious thing in the very first game. And like I said, I seeing the modern control thing I think it's just kind of acknowledging that of like, yeah, there's some people who just can't do a Dragon Punch.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like the Cannons and Seth Killian were working on there for a while. Rolling the Rising.
Yeah, they were the extreme version.
They were just like
a
tap
button
to do it.
Exactly,
and you're like,
exactly.
That's blasphemy. And you're like, actually, wait, this is weirdly.
Yeah, and I really wanted to. Like I said, I want to see how this works out, but it's like we're still waiting, kind of like
now. It's just inside of Riot somewhere,
Yeah,
and who knows if anyone will ever see it. But okay. Okay, yeah. So other modes, you're saying that there's more to announce. Obviously, at some point in the past, this game has been Mortal Kombat
not announced.
Oh, sorry.
To be leaked.
To be leaked. Yes, we'll leak them any day now. And some foreign Amazon will have them tomorrow, and we'll know all about all of the DLC. Well, I guess we already know about all of the DLC. Motor Combat.
They mentioned the Amazon DLC leak. Oh crap, dude, that's got to be real then. If they're like memeing it, like I feel like Ed's like memeing it in like a salty way. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, it's not gonna be announced, it's gonna be leaked. Like he's memeing it and like he's like Doomer memeing. He's like being a Doomer about it. So like that DLC, bro, Homelander's coming. He's gonna drink the milk. He's gonna fucking laser through Sub-Zero's head. Like he's coming. This to me confirms that's real. Because let's be real, it's Amazon, the official seller on Amazon Italy, leaked that DLC. So there's only two ways. There's only one way it's not real, and that's if they purposely put a fake DLC line up there to troll us. But otherwise, it's real. It's not a Reddit leak. It's Amazon official seller. And the fact that Ed's like being like a doomer memer here, talking about like, oh, we're not going to announce it's going to be leaked. Like that tells me it's real. It's real. So yeah, Takeda, Quan Chi, Ermac, Homelander, Peacemaker, Omni-Man, they're coming, y'all. Who are the cameos in there? Farah, Movado. Dude, which makes even more sense because he's talking about obscure characters being cameos. Movado, Farah. I think Tremor is in there, right? And then forget who else it was. Someone else.
Puzzle Combat, the big elaborate story mode of those Xbox and PS2 era games. Obviously, you're talking about the heavy lift of changing engines. This is probably not the game to have that.
Yeah.
But do you think, like, is that something you ever, like, down the line, you're like, okay, maybe we can re-envision the story mode to be more like those, or like a quest system or whatever?
Yeah, there is definitely a new mode we're going to be announcing in the future, and that's a brand new thing, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be, very cool. In terms of revisiting kind of like these the chess combat, motor combat, puzzle combat, and all that stuff. Probably not in this game. And I think like we were talking about before, we really established a foundation.
Yeah.
Let's get a new combat thing. Let's get these air combos and bring back the breakers and the cameo characters and all that stuff, and just really establish that. And maybe in the future we'll layer some stuff on, but right now it's just kind of like the new game.
Get this game up and running on UE5 and get it out the door. Yeah, cool. All right, Ed, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I feel like the reason like Conquest and Chess Combat, Motor Combat, Tetris Combat, I think the reason those things were present in the old games, in like the 3D games, because those games were not like designed like meticulously. They weren't like they didn't have a lot of attention to detail. It was just like, you got your moves, you got your specials, and like here's like a sword, Quan Chi or something like that. Like nowadays they're like designing the games like for competitive play, like to where they work in tournaments, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that requires like so much attention to detail and like resources and time that it's hard for them to fit in like a chess combat, a motor combat, stuff like that. And then they got cinematic stories. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see any of those 3D modes. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video, y'all. This interview was all right. Someone hit me up and they were like, oh, you got to look at this interview now. And I was expecting a lot more juice. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we didn't get too much juice out of this. Got a little bit of stuff here and there. Like, yeah, so I don't really know what to say. But yeah, I mean, I'm bringing y'all the news. So hopefully y'all got a few things out of that. Definitely the way Ed was talking, it makes me feel like the Amazon leak was real with the DLC. It makes me feel like that was real. So we know that now. And yeah, that's gonna be that, y'all. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Gonna be dropping MK1 news nonstop. And then when the game comes out, I'm going to be posting super high level first to 10s, character guides, all that. So later, y'all.